You know, when I created the Hypnagogic Archive well over a year ago at this point, I never imagined it would become as big and as fantastic, as lucrative as it has become. Not necessarily monetarily lucrative, but ideologically lucrative. Out of every series I've ever conceived, I think the Hypnagogic Archive is the most rich in ideas and concepts and themes that I've toyed around with. And I think that's the beauty of fiction, being able to prod around with a story and kind of see where it leads you. It's been quite the journey. So in this video, I thought I would take a retrospective look at the series. I've already made one video on it, how I created a viral ARG. That was a few months ago, and with the series officially over, I figured it was well worth taking another look at the Hypnagogic Archive, just kind of seeing where it ended up and where I'm going next. So let's talk about it. I'm not sure exactly where the Hypnagogic Archive falls in analog horror, because analog horror is a genre that I've been, for the most part, extremely critical of. I don't know anything about any of the other major players in the field. I have not gotten to engage with any major figures out there. I haven't really been interviewed or contacted. I myself have received very little recognition for my creation. I suppose that's because I failed to capitalize on it. I failed to take advantage of it. But that's also because the Hypnagogic Archive isn't all that marketable. It's kind of the anti-web series in that regard. It provides a welcome alternative to those who don't want schlock, don't want cheese, want a story that's told really fucking well. And I think that's why a lot of people were turned off Hypnagogic Archive, because it's not the kind of story where you can just piece everything together in a neat little puzzle. It's deliberately obtuse by design. You have to read the stories and watch the videos many times before you even begin to grasp what's going on beneath the surface on a thematic level. And even then, I don't know what's going on half the time, and I made a lot of stuff up. I mean, I made all of it up, it's fiction, but I think it's a much deeper series than it really lets on the surface, and that's what separates it from something like the Walton Files or Mandela Catalog, or even Local 58, if I'm going to be honest. It's a much deeper series than Local 58. Now, do I think a thematically complex analog horror series is something the internet really needed? Maybe not. I do think Local 58 benefits from instantly recognizable catchphrases and extremely distinctive iconography. It's the sort of series which benefits because it appeals to the mainstream. Hypnagogic Archive, I would argue, is the type of series that only appeals to a very specific niche, people who are interested in serious art or literature in a science fiction and horror vein. And those sorts of people are increasingly rare to come across these days. Hypnagogic Archive is also somewhat off-putting because, let's be honest, it takes a long time to parse through all that text and watch every single video. I do think that Hypnagogic Archive will earn kind of a cult status, a bit of a cult following, if you will. It has arrived on the tail end of analog horror. The hot new thing these days is digital horror, which takes place in Roblox and shit, and I'm definitely never going to delve into that field of content creation. I'm always going to stick with the tried and true VHS format, because I think VHS, and I've explained this in detail, is a format which really lends itself to being unnerving. I don't think you can get the same effect with Roblox or Minecraft or any of this digital horror garbage. I think what's appealing about analog horror is not just that it's nostalgic, because I think a series like the Hypnagogic Archive really deconstructs and satirizes nostalgia. I think VHS is a terrifying medium because there are infinite possibilities on it. This one tape could hold anything, and that's a terrifying concept for us to wrap our head around. In fact, infinity is obviously a difficult concept in general for us to understand or comprehend. It's terrifying to think that the universe could potentially be endless, without boundaries, without end. That is only one theory put forward by modern scientists. Most agree that the universe does have boundaries somewhere. The cosmic microwave background, which coincidentally is also, in a certain way, the source of TV static, which comes up quite a bit in the series, along with the default blue background from a VCR. I don't think the Hypnagogic Archive takes advantage of nostalgia. I think it presents a very realistic and grounded depiction of the past. Primarily, it's about dredging up memories from the past that weren't necessarily meant to be found. In that regard, I think it bears a lot of similarities to something like Stephen King's It, thematically, of course. I think memory can be as terrifying as it is enjoyable to indulge in. I myself obviously grew up with VHS, and I intend on using it for a long, long time. The rest of my life, in fact. And I've obviously released Hypnagogic Archive, every single video on VHS. This video, in fact, is on the Hypnagogic Archive VHS as a bit of a special feature tacked on at the end. I've made sure of that. And you can buy Hypnagogic Archive, every video on VHS, and watch them in the format they were meant to be seen. I highly recommend that. Turn the lights off, make some popcorn in the microwave, and then get subjected to some authentic VHS analog terror. Because I don't really think you can enjoy the experience fully, anyway, on the internet. I think if you watch those videos on VHS, you'll have possibly the most authentic experience you can have. And me selling real VHS tapes obviously proves that I'm dedicated to my craft and I'm not going to sacrifice my artistic integrity. This, of course, was a point of contention among certain followers of Hypnagogic Archive who insisted that I capitalize as much as possible on the brand and the franchise and the recognizability of the name and logo. One of them suggested that I open up a Patreon for the Hypnagogic Archive in character as Ellis. Obviously, whoever suggested this to me, I forget who it was, had no idea who Ellis was as a character. Ellis is the embodiment of VHS-fueled insanity and would never willingly open up a Patreon. I think it would be terrible to open up a Patreon in the Hypnagogic Archive's name, even if it was in character, because a major plot thread in Hypnagogic Archive is where the archive gets its money from. That's left deliberately ambiguous, as are a lot of things about the archive's see-me operations. So I think the suggestion that I would open up a Patreon, especially when the series only had like 5 months to go, and a Patreon depends on a monthly subscription plan where you're expected to put out something of value every month to people, would not have worked for Hypnagogic Archive. But I have, of course, come out with a lot of Hypnagogic Archive merch. There's the Hypnagogic Archive official VHS tape, like I said, with all the Hypnagogic Archive videos on it, plus some bonus content. It includes the Lost Howdy Doodies video that never made it to the official web series, and it includes You Might Have Seen Me on there, because that is canon to Hypnagogic Archive. I put out the Hypnagogic Archive album on Type 1 ferric oxide cassette tape, and I've put out the official Hypnagogic Archive comic, Exploiters of Time, which I think is a really fantastic little mid-quel tie-in that ties up some loose ends, and I would definitely recommend it to any dedicated Hypnagogic Archive fans out there. But I'm offering this stuff up because I think it's important to provide the best possible value for you, the fans who have followed along and want a piece of fun memorabilia, a fun little collectible. Of course, I'm offering every Hypnagogic Archive story and Mystic Cement story in one collection called You Might Have Seen Them for $28, which is 1 penny more than Alex Kister charges for his overpriced Mandela catalog plushies, which are just a stuffed animal with a stupid photo of a guy's face on them. So I'm really testing here whether people are more interested in buying that overpriced junk or buying real literature, like a real book that's really cool and fun and has some amazing stories in it. Pricing it 1 penny above the Mandela Catalog plushie, $28. And unlike the Mandela Catalog plushie, I don't create artificial scarcity. I'm going to be selling it and the rest of the Hypnagogic Archive merchandise forever. For the rest of my life anyway. It's added permanently into the Nicolas Comics catalog, so it's there for you to enjoy. Check it out. It's really fun. Thank you for supporting Hypnagogic Archive. Some acknowledgements must be made, of course. Thank you to Wendigoon for bringing this project to more people than I ever could have imagined. That was exhilarating the first few days after those videos came out. It's very exciting to see my work recognized, analyzed, thoughtfully picked apart. Thank you to David Stockdale of Nightmare Masterclass for creating a video which was much more analytical and insightful than the Wendigoon one. I've been watching Nightmare Masterclass since 2017, and it is undoubtedly the gold standard of horror analysis here on YouTube. Anyone who is interested in analysis, criticism, anything like that should definitely check Nightmare Masterclass out. It's a fantastic channel, really underrated. It needs more subs, seriously. David Stockdale is fantastic, and to see someone as good as him knock it out of the park with a Hypnagogic Archive analysis, that was a dream come true. Thank you to Clark Saturn, without whose donation of surreal VHS content, the Hypnagogic Archive would have been a very different beast, whose exciting, weird, electronic music collages continue to fascinate and inspire 20 years down the line. And thank you to the fans who have just made the Hypnagogic Archive so exciting, interesting, really added to it. As I said, some of the fans didn't like Hypnagogic Archive, but they weren't really fans of Hypnagogic Archive. They were more so fans of Wendigoon, and I understand that, but I don't think Hypnagogic Archive is the kind of thing that can be mass marketed. I don't think it's the kind of thing that is very brandable, and I think that as long as I'm attached to it, as long as it's my intellectual property, it'll be a little controversial, it'll be a little out there, it'll be on the fringe, but I'm fine with that because it's a fantastic series. It was just a complete joy to bring it to the internet and put it together and share my art, because I think the best impact I can leave on the world is by creating fun entertainment for people to enjoy. And I think that Hypnagogic Archive is definitely one of those series, at least from what I've seen, that's left a positive impact on a lot of people, and that's fantastic. I'm going to come out with more projects in the same vein soon, so watch out for those. Yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say about Hypnagogic Archive. It's definitely one of the most important projects I've ever worked on, definitely a turning point in my career, and the kind of thing I'm proud to put my name on and sell stuff associated with. I don't want to make it just about money, because at the end of the day I started it with very low expectations, and I never knew that it would garner millions of fans, thousands of admirers, and that's just great to know. That's really all I can ask for as a humble mail-order cartoonist. So if you'd like to get your hands on any of the exciting Hypnagogic Archive merch, you can write to Nicolas Sequeira, 1424 Columbine St, number 1, Denver, Colorado, 80206. I can't suggest it enough. I've put all my work in to make sure it's very satisfactory, high-quality stuff for every Hypnagogic Archive fan out there. And I think that's it for this little retrospective. I've had so much fun just making this, and like I said, that's the beauty of fiction, creating worlds from nothing, creating ideas from nothing, and making something weird and wacky and just genuinely interesting that people can sink their teeth into. I think it's very satisfying to complete something. And here I stand in the midst of unprecedented fame. And yeah, to every fan out there, just thank you for following along with this and seeing where it goes. It's going to go some fun places, so stick around.